Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Master Detective Archive's Rain Code for the Nintendo Switch. Before we get on with the footage, there was this particular notice when I started up the game, which made me worry that perhaps I would have to go back to my original style of doing just me in front of the camera. So to get some clarification, I went on Spike Chunsoft's official page for this game, and they made this screenshot here, which, to briefly summarize, basically they don't want anything spoiled past chapter 4, and if I do talk about the stuff that happens before it, I need to do a spoiler warning. So this video will contain spoilers for most of chapter 0. It will even describe who the murderer is. However, chapter 0 is for the most part a standalone chapter, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about still being surprised about the grand reveal. With that being said, let's get on with the review properly. If you're a big fan of the Danganronpa series, you are going to feel right at home in this game, and probably don't even need to watch the rest of this review to be convinced that this is going to be an amazing game. It was made by the same developers as Danganronpa, and even has a lot of that franchise's trademarks. Protagonist with an ahoge, definitely check. Pink blood, yup, they got that. Murder mysteries, plenty of those. An abundance of fan service involving the female body, almost too much. While the killing game formula is long gone and a thing of the past, this game still provides plenty of the adrenaline-pumping, mystery-solving action that the Danganronpa games are known for, while taking it into a new environment with new characters and a standalone plot. You play as Yuma, an amnesiac detective who made a pact with a death god, and her powers allow him to enter what's called the Mystery Labyrinth, which is a physical manifestation of the mystery at hand, where your job is to get through a bunch of thematically appropriate obstacles in order to reach the truth behind who the culprit is. This takes the form of a whole bunch of mini-games, and during the mini-games you'll have to use what's called solution keys, which are basically the equivalent of truth bullets in Danganronpa, to literally slash through the lies with your solution blade. See, they even took the truth blades from Danganronpa. But before you jump right into the mystery labyrinth, you have to gather enough clues so that you have the solution keys necessary to get through the labyrinth. So you move around in a third-person perspective with full camera control, and when you find an object of interest, you can examine it to either get a solution key or simply to just increase your detective points. You can gain detective points in other areas too, such as answering a question correctly or doing a side quest effectively, but we'll get to the side quests in a minute. You spend these detective points to upgrade your skill tree, which makes the Mystery Labyrinth considerably easier, and you can mix and match however you want if you want more of a challenge. If you're the type of player who wants the hard modes that Danganronpa games offer that this game for some reason doesn't give you, then just don't go out of your way to look at stuff or do the side quests. However, if you do go out of your way to do optional stuff, know that there's not really any additional rewards, as you're pretty much only awarded with detective points. So essentially, a long side quest and a short side quest are always going to give you the same thing. One just might give you more points if you do the right dialogue options. The game has a really good map system that makes it really easy to tell exactly where you need to go. I never had to look up a guide or a walkthrough to get through any of the side quests, as they were very easy to figure out where I needed to go and what I needed to do. And having the same reward for all of them meant that I didn't have the problem I ran into with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where sometimes the reward wouldn't be worth the effort. This goes for the main objectives too, as usually they're very clearly marked on the map, and if you try to go to the next objective too quickly, Yuma will say, no, we still need to investigate more in this area. So you're never unsure of really what it is that you're doing. I believe it was only twice did I ever get stuck, and that's because there's only two options to zoom in and out the map, and I just didn't have the exact right area where I needed to be. But that was so infrequent, it's basically a non-issue. There is one exception to all of this same reward for everything, and that's the gumshoe gab. You can find these blue sparkling things scattered throughout the environment, and collecting them allows you to view optional gumshoe gab conversations with Yuma's fellow detectives. These are basically the equivalent of the hangout events in Danganronpa, where you just get to know like what Yuma and his friends talk about in their spare time. You do have options of what to say in the dialogue, but if you get the wrong one, Yuma will eventually come to the correct conclusion anyway. They don't really give you any additional rewards for completing all of the gumshoe gabs, except that you get 25 detective points per each blue sparkling thing found. As you hover over the profile of each detective, you do get clues as to where the sparkles are found, but you don't get informed of which chapter they are found in until the epilogue, which at that point it's kind of too late because to my knowledge there isn't really a chapter select. However, to speed along subsequent playthroughs, I found out when capturing footage for this game that detective points and gumshoe gabs are saved throughout all of the save files, as are the tutorials. So if you start up a new game and you already have gone through a tutorial section, you won't have to review it, though there is the option to do that in the menu. And you'll also have your same detective rank and will be able to have access to all of the abilities you've already purchased, albeit on a new save file, they'll all be defaulted turned off. So that allows you to quickly speed through the game much quicker and not have to wander around as much. And you can basically skip the side quests on a second playthrough, which is something I really wish more RPGs and open world adventures would do, and this game isn't even trying to be that. During the exploration, the graphics are actually significantly better than what you would expect from a Spike Chunsoft or Tokyo Games production. They're not perfect by any means, as there's still the occasional pop-in and blank textures. But one thing that I think they nailed really well is the effect of the rain. Kanai Ward, the main area where this game takes place, is in a perpetual rainstorm, and generally speaking, the effects of the rain and how it affects the environment around you is really well done, as there are often like torrents appearing in the distance. The character's footsteps will be splashing depending on how much rain is in the area. You'll be able to see light reflections really well, and Kanai Ward also has a bunch of neon signs and colors that give the streets a very luminescent feel to it that I don't really see too much in games. So overall, it's much more pleasant to look at than pretty much any of the other games this studio has made, and I actually had a reason to want to turn the camera around. But enough of the exploration for now. Let's jump into what you're really here for, which is the Mystery Labyrinth. As I said earlier, the Mystery Labyrinth is a manifestation of the mystery, so you'll have a chance to review all of your solution keys pretty much whenever, and you'll encounter various mini-games in which your reflexes and your reasoning abilities will be put to the test. The mini-games vary depending on the case, and sometimes the scenery around it will also change to reflect the thematic importance of whatever the case is, but for the most part there are a few carryovers that factor into every labyrinth. Every labyrinth has several reasoning death matches, which are the main attraction, where a mystery phantom will try to keep you from solving the case and will be this giant oversized monsters that'll spew out statements towards you, kind of like the non-stop debates in Danganronpa, and you'll have to dodge the wrong statements. Dodging at just the right moment will give you a perfect dodge, which can be used to get you additional training points after you beat the case, and you have to find the right solution key and slash the contradictory statement for a very satisfying splash screen similar to the objection in Ace Attorney to tell the mystery phantom why they're wrong. There's the Shinigami puzzle, which involves shooting knives at letters on a barrel to fill out the correct word. One thing that makes this better than Hangman's Gambit in the Danganronpa series is that you can feed some of the solution keys to Shinigami to get a hint as to what the word could be. One thing that's a bit unfortunate is that you can't really control the speed of the barrel mid-minigame. There are skills that let you slow down the barrel's rotation, but seeing as the right stick isn't used, why couldn't you just use the right stick to move the barrel faster at certain points, or to move it slower? I don't think that would have gotten rid of too much challenge, or for that matter, even have one of the abilities on the solution tree be able to use the right stick, since that seems to be a pet peeve of mine, is when not all of the buttons on a controller are adequately used when they could be. Sometimes you'll have a fork in the road and you'll have to determine which option makes the most sense. There might be a lock on the door where you have to find the right solution key to break through the lock. Sometimes there are quick time events where you have to press the correct button that corresponds to the correct answer. And if you get the wrong answer, then your stamina will decrease. And in some events, it's an instant game over, such as if you lose the Shinigami puzzle, which is unfortunate because it's kind of inconsistent. Like, some penalties remove just a little bit of your health, but others give you a full game over. I never actually got a game over from the minigames that just depleted stamina because I always had more than enough even before I filled up my skill tree. So I feel like that's just there for bragging purposes to say, hey, I hardly got hit by any wrong deductions at all because I'm such a master detective. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, so don't let it get to your head. Basically, it's Danganronpa, but in some cases better, and in other cases worse. One thing that I find that is significantly better than the Danganronpa class trials are that the Mystery Labyrinth is much more grand in scale. There's a lot of moving set pieces, new camera angles, and it feels more action-packed, like something is constantly going on instead of the characters literally just standing in a circle the whole time and switching between different cardboard cutout poses, which allows for more 3D animations and more of a visual spectacle. Although some of the introductory cutscenes for the minigames do get old really fast, although you do have the option to either skip or fast forward most of them. One major flaw of this Mystery Labyrinth is that there's way too many long straight hallways that you have to walk down. Some of them you're not even required to walk down, as you walk through the hallway and you can advance the conversation manually, but then you'll automatically get to your destination as soon as you finish talking. Eventually, my thumb was getting so tired of just holding the control stick forward the whole time that I eventually said, what would happen if I just didn't move and waited for the timer to pass? Sometimes the hallway would just disappear and I'd move on to the next part, no problem. Other times it would make the hallway go by quicker because I had already spawned near the exit, and I wish the game had a better way of transitioning and having like natural conversations. Maybe if they kept it to the sequences where Yuma was running through the hallway automatically and didn't require any player input, as honestly you can't really explore in the Mystery Labyrinth. It's always a very straightforward passageway. Sometimes, to the game's credit, it will present elements of non-linearity, which is usually a flaw in Danganronpa and Ace Attorney games, where you have to solve the case exactly as the game wants you to, and if you reach the solution before the protagonist does, you are penalized for it. Granted, that still happens quite a lot in this game, as I found that the cases were, for the most part, considerably more predictable than either of those previous series, but there are times where the game lets you choose which route to go down first, and the game sometimes lets you choose which route to go down first, and there isn't really a right or wrong order, which is nice, although you'll eventually still reach the same conclusion anyway. Although it does give you the option to play the game in different ways, so at least these teams behind these visual novels are improving. Speaking of performance, this game is not exactly the most optimized game out there. Granted, Spike Chunsoft and Tokyo Games haven't exactly been the best at prioritizing the gameplay over their stories, but in a year where you've got Tears of the Kingdom running practically flawlessly, it becomes even easier to notice the shortcomings. There are quite a lot of fade to black moments when there really should have been something going on. The game has quite a lot of loading screens, and they seem to come at the worst possible times. Not as bad as the Switch version of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, but there are times where a boss battle will come at you, and there will be a loading screen before you can initiate the battle, or a character will be in the middle of crying, then there will be a loading scene to transition to a new camera angle. And it seems like they always remove the game of a lot of its more emotional moments, as if it was just a seamless experience, it would feel so much more immersive. Same goes for the world map. This isn't an open world environment, so you do have big areas to explore, but they're set off in segments, and there's usually a long loading screen in between each segment, which seem to be even longer if you decide to fast travel. If you can look past the loading screens and some of the technical hiccups, overall this game has otherwise very good production values, especially in the voice acting and sound design. The sound effects are done really well. The music sounds more or less like Danganronpa music. I hope you guys are keeping account of how many times I've said Danganronpa in it. The English voice acting is quite spectacular. I know I tend to say that a lot more than most reviewers do, but I think that's one thing that Spike Chunsoft has been really consistent in, besides their stories, in that they really know how to cast the English voice actors. Lucian Dodge was cast perfectly as Yuma. He really knows how to inflect just enough emotion to make it believable, but not too much that it becomes melodramatic. And I think even people that make the complaint that they prefer Japanese voice acting because Japanese voice actors know how to put more emotion into their inflections will really like what Lucian is able to do with Yuma's character. That goes for pretty much all of them, but seeing as Lucian is the protagonist and has to do most of the heavy lifting, he really nails it. And so I'm really glad to actually see him in a starring role after he's basically been the sidekick in the other games that I've been playing. Of course, you're going to want to know how is the story, as what visual novel is good enough without a story. And I'm very pleased to say that Raincode absolutely delivers in a wonderful narrative. It's not quite as twisty as the Zero Escape games or the Ace Attorney series or even Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, but it does offer a very satisfying resolution that is extremely amazing to actually solve by yourself in the mystery labyrinth. Granted, the twists are way more predictable than before, as I found myself way ahead of Yuma in my deductions way more often than the previous games this company has made. But at the same time, it really does feel like this was a well-crafted mystery where several things add up to provide a satisfying conclusion. If you love Danganronpa games, you're gonna love this. If you don't like Danganronpa games, though, would you still find enjoyment out of Raincode? I think it depends on how much you like solving mysteries and how much you're able to tolerate M-rated stuff, as there's a lot of blood splatter, there's a lot of violence, and there's a lot of suggestive moments, especially breast jiggling. So ask yourself if you can put up with a lot of female sexualization and violence. But also ask yourself if you're the type that really likes being able to feel like you're a detective. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a detective when I grew up, so I read a lot of detective novels. And this game sort of fulfilled that need of mine. And so I think if you are anything like me and really love solving cases, you're going to love Master Detective Archives. And if you really love the game, there's even DLC for it. None of it was available for purchase at the time of this review, so that is not factored into it. But if I wasn't renting this game from Gamefly, I would probably purchase all of it because it is so much fun to discover the mystery behind this game, and the opportunity to potentially do more is just really cool. Now, this game is priced at somewhere between $50 to $60, which I do think is a pretty fair price for the amount of cutscenes and complexity in the mystery labyrinth and the scope of the mystery, albeit you are mostly confined to one area with a few different provinces. I think if you wait for it to go on sale, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I could also see Danganronpa fans wanting to pay the $60 anyway, because it's just such a high quality next product from those developers. If you rent it like me, know that it's a pretty lengthy game, and it'll take you quite a while to get to the credits, although I imagine without the loading screens it would probably take half as long. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I do read and respond to most of them, so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Special thanks to my patrons Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost Splatcat, and Scooter Doodle for their financial contributions on Patreon. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!